I'll create a detailed 4,000-word story based on your requirements and title. For 8 years, we painted a picture of marital bliss. The suburban house weekend barbecues and matching Christmas sweaters told everyone we were happily married. What they could not see were the separate bedrooms, silent dinners, and my wife Laura constantly texting her friends. I discovered the truth at her birthday party when I overheard her laughing, "No, Tom is just a roommate who pays the bills. I married the house, not the man." Her friends roared with laughter while my heart shattered. So I made a simple decision. If I was just a roommate, I would act like one. 3 months later, Laura is desperately knocking at my door, begging me to be her husband again. Before I continue this story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop a like and subscribe if you have ever been taken for granted by someone who should have valued you the most. Sometimes the best lessons in life come from setting proper boundaries with those who have forgotten your worth. I met Laura Jackson during my final year of college. She was a business major with a captivating smile and ambition that matched my own. We connected instantly over shared dreams of building successful careers and eventually starting a family. After dating for 2 years, I proposed on a weekend trip to Lake Tahoe. When she said yes, I believed I had found my forever partner. We married in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by friends and family. Everyone commented on how perfect we seemed together, how our energy and goals aligned so perfectly. We bought our first home together in a nice suburb of Chicago 6 months after the wedding. It was a beautiful colonial with 4 bedrooms and a spacious backyard, exactly what Laura had always wanted. The first few years of marriage seemed ideal. We both secured good positions at respected companies, took vacations to tropical destinations each winter, and spent weekends renovating our home to fit Laura's vision. I worked hard to provide the lifestyle she desired, often taking on extra projects and overtime to ensure we could afford the renovations, furniture, and social events that were important to her. As year 4 of our marriage approached, I began noticing subtle changes in Laura's behavior. She became increasingly distant, spending more time on her phone and with her friends than with me. When I would ask about her day, her responses became briefer, less engaged. We stopped sharing meals together, as she would often eat earlier with friends or claim she was not hungry when I arrived home. Working late again, she would text not bothering to wait up for me, despite knowing I was putting in extra hours for our financial future. What hurt most was how Laura's social media portrayed us. Her Instagram was filled with perfectly staged photos of our home captions about our amazing life together, yet behind the scenes we barely spoke. She tagged me in posts about couple goals while sleeping in our guest bedroom most nights, claiming my snoring disturbed her rest. I tried multiple times to discuss the growing distance between us. I suggested couples therapy weekend getaways to reconnect, even changing my work schedule to spend more time together. Laura dismissed each suggestion. "We are fine, Tom," she would say. "Not every marriage is like the movies. We are stable and secure, and that is what matters." I accepted her explanation and continued working hard to maintain our lifestyle. I believe that perhaps this was simply how marriages evolved over time, settling into comfortable companionship rather than passionate partnership. When friends asked how we were doing, I echoed Laura's sentiment. "We are stable and secure." I convinced myself this was enough. The reality of our relationship became painfully clear on Laura's 33rd birthday. I had planned a surprise party at our home, inviting 20 of her closest friends. I spent weeks coordinating with caterers, decorating the house, and selecting thoughtful gifts. I wanted to show Laura how much she meant to me, despite our growing distance. The party was in full swing when I went to the kitchen to get more ice for drinks. As I approached, I heard Laura's voice from around the corner. She was speaking to a circle of her closest friends, wine glass in hand, unaware of my presence. "No, Tom is just a roommate who pays the bills," she said, with a laugh that cut through me like glass. "I married the house, not the man." Her friends laughed along, one of them responding, "Girl, you played the long game perfectly. Nice house joint accounts, and he is too nice to ever leave." Another chimed in, "And he does all the maintenance and pays most of the bills. Best roommate ever." Laura raised her glass. "To having a roommate who thinks he is a husband." Their laughter echoed in my ears as I stood frozen ice bucket in hand. 8 years of marriage reduced to a joke my love and commitment dismissed as naivety. I quietly returned to the living room, placed the ice bucket down, and observed my wife from across the room with new eyes. The party continued, and I played my role perfectly. I smiled for photos, thanked guests for coming, and even gave a toast to my beautiful wife. No one noticed the hollowness behind my eyes or how my hands trembled slightly as I handed Laura her birthday gift, a diamond bracelet she had been hinting about for months. Later that night, after all the guests had left and Laura had gone to bed in the guest room as usual, I sat alone in our living room surrounded by the remnants of the party. Empty glasses, discarded gift wrap, and the shattered illusion of my marriage. I did not confront Laura that night or the next day. Instead, I began researching and planning. If I was merely a roommate in Laura's eyes, then perhaps it was time I embraced that role fully. No more husband benefits for someone who viewed me as nothing more than a convenient financial arrangement. The next morning I woke early and went about my day as usual. Laura emerged from the guest room around 9, still wearing her silk pajamas. "Great party last night," she said, pouring herself coffee. "Everyone had a wonderful time." I nodded, maintaining my composure. "I am glad it went well. I have some errands to run today. I will be back this evening." Laura barely glanced up from her phone. "Sounds good." As I drove away from our house, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The pain was still there, sharp and persistent, but alongside it grew a determination to reclaim my dignity and self-worth. By the time I returned home that evening, I had a plan in motion. The following Monday, I scheduled an appointment with a financial advisor and an attorney. I needed to understand my options before making any definitive moves. I learned that in our state, assets acquired during marriage were considered marital property, but I could take steps to protect future income and establish clear boundaries. That evening, I sat down with Laura at the dining table, something we rarely did anymore. "We need to talk about household finances," I began, my voice calm and steady. Laura looked up from her phone, mildly surprised. "What about them? Is there a problem with the accounts?" "No problem," I replied. "I just think we need a more equitable division of expenses moving forward." Laura frowned. "We already split things. I pay for groceries and my personal expenses." "Actually," I said, sliding a piece of paper toward her, "I did some calculations. I currently pay the mortgage, utilities, property taxes, home insurance, both car insurances, and all maintenance costs. That accounts for approximately 85% of our household expenses. Groceries and your personal expenses make up the remaining 15%. Laura's frown deepened. "So, you make more than I do. That has always been our arrangement. The income difference is 30%, yet I cover 85% of expenses," I replied evenly. "Going forward, I think we should split household expenses proportionally to our incomes. I will cover 65%, and you will cover 35%. That is ridiculous." Laura scoffed. "Why change things now? After 8 years, I maintained eye contact. Because I recently gained clarity about our relationship. I realized I have been operating under a misunderstanding about what this marriage means to you." Something flickered in Laura's eyes, a momentary uncertainty, but she quickly recovered. "What are you talking about? Everything is fine. Starting next month, I will deposit my portion of the household expenses into our joint account. I expect you to do the same with your 35%. I continued, ignoring her question. "I have prepared a spreadsheet detailing exactly what that amount will be." Laura stared at me, her expression a mixture of confusion and annoyance. "This is coming out of nowhere. Is this about money or something else?" "It is about accuracy," I replied. "I want our financial arrangement to accurately reflect our relationship." With that, I stood up and left the room, leaving Laura staring at the spreadsheet. I had taken the first step in my plan, and it felt surprisingly empowering. The next phase involved physical changes to our living arrangement. Since Laura had been sleeping in the guest room for months, I decided to formalize our separate living spaces. I purchased a small refrigerator for my home office and moved most of my personal belongings into the master bedroom and adjacent office, essentially creating my own apartment within our home. When Laura noticed the refrigerator being delivered, she confronted me in the driveway. "What is that for?" she demanded. My office, I replied simply. Since we are essentially roommates sharing space, I thought it would be more convenient to have my own food storage. Laura's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. Roommates, what are you talking about? Just being practical, I said, signing the delivery receipt and helping the delivery men move the refrigerator inside. That evening, I installed a new lock on my office door. When Laura asked why, I explained that roommates typically respect each other's private spaces. "This is getting weird, Tom," she said, watching me test the new lock. "Why do you keep using that word roommates?" I looked at her directly. "Because that is how you described me to your friends at your birthday party. I am just aligning my actions with your perception." The color drained from Laura's face. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again, unable to formulate a response. "I heard everything," I continued calmly. "I heard how you married the house, not the man. How I am just the roommate who pays the bills. I decided you were right. We are roommates. So I am making appropriate adjustments." Laura's shocked expression quickly transformed to defensive anger. "You were eavesdropping on a private conversation. I was just joking with my friends. You cannot seriously be this sensitive." "Call it what you want," I replied. "But actions speak louder than words, and for years you have been treating me like a roommate, not a husband. Separate bedrooms, minimal communication, separate social lives. I am simply acknowledging the reality of our situation." Laura stormed off, slamming the guest room door behind her. I expected her anger, her attempt to flip the narrative and make me the villain. What I had not expected was how liberated I would feel having finally spoken the truth aloud. The next phase of my plan involved our social life. For years, I had attended Laura's work functions, family events, and social gatherings, playing the role of devoted husband, while she barely acknowledged my presence. That was about to change. When Laura mentioned her company's annual gala the following weekend, I informed her I would not be attending. "What do you mean you are not going?" "You always come to the gala," she said, clearly caught off guard. "Roommates do not typically attend each other's work functions," I explained. "Besides, I have plans with some friends that evening." This was true. I had reconnected with several friends I had neglected during my marriage, and we had planned a fishing trip that weekend. Laura was stunned into silence, unused to me prioritizing my own social connections over her events. As days passed, I continued implementing changes. I stopped doing Laura's laundry, a task I had taken on years ago. I ceased preparing meals for both of us, instead cooking only for myself. I no longer mowed the lawn or handled home maintenance automatically, instead proposing we either split these tasks or hire services and split the costs. Each change was met with increasing distress from Laura. She vacillated between anger accusations of pettiness and attempts to make me feel guilty. When none of these tactics worked, she tried a different approach. 2 weeks after I began my roommate strategy, Laura knocked on my bedroom door one evening wearing an outfit I had not seen in years, her hair styled the way I once mentioned I liked it. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer than it had been in months. I gestured for her to enter, but remained seated at my desk. "I think we have had a misunderstanding," she began. "What you heard at the party was just silly girl talk. It did not mean anything." "Perhaps," I replied. "But it aligned perfectly with how you have been treating me for years." Laura moved closer. "I know I have been distant lately. Work has been stressful and I took it out on our relationship. I am sorry." For a moment I felt a flicker of the love I once had for her, but it was quickly extinguished by the memory of her laughing with her friends, the years of emotional neglect. "Thank you for the apology," I said politely, "but I am comfortable with our current arrangement." "It is honest, at least." Laura's seductive demeanor crumbled, replaced by frustration. "So that is it. You are going to keep acting like this over one stupid comment." "This is not about one comment," I explained patiently. "This is about years of being treated like a convenience rather than a partner." The comment simply confirmed what I had been feeling but could not articulate. Laura left my room that night without resolution. Over the next few days, she alternated between ignoring me completely and making small gestures reminiscent of our early marriage, bringing me coffee in the morning, asking about my day. I remained polite but distant, committed to my new boundaries. The financial impact of our new arrangement became apparent when the first month's bills arrived. Laura had been spending far more on personal luxuries than either of us had fully realized, cushioned by my disproportionate contribution to household expenses. Now, facing her fair share of costs, she was forced to reconsider her spending habits. "This is not sustainable," she complained one evening, looking over her credit card statement. "I had to cancel my spa membership." "You make a good salary," I noted. "This is simply the reality of paying your proportional share of our expenses." Our interactions continued in this manner for another few weeks. I remained firm in my new boundaries, while Laura cycled through various strategies to return to our previous dynamic. None worked. The turning point came when Laura's parents visited for dinner. They had always been fond of me, and I of them. Throughout our marriage, they had treated me like a son, and I valued their relationship independently of my connection with Laura. During dinner, Laura attempted to present our marriage as unchanged, engaging me in conversation and touching my arm affectionately when her parents were watching. I responded politely but did not reciprocate her sudden displays of affection. When Laura excused herself to use the bathroom, her mother turned to me with concern in her eyes. "Is everything all right between you two, Tom? Something feels different." I hesitated, reluctant to involve her parents, but unwilling to perpetuate the lie. "We are adjusting to a new understanding of our relationship," I said carefully. When Laura returned, the conversation shifted to other topics, but her mother's perceptive glance between us indicated she sensed the tension. After her parents left, Laura confronted me. "What did you say to my mother?" "The truth," I replied. "That we are adjusting to a new understanding of our relationship." "This has gone too far," Laura snapped. "You are turning my family against me." I simply answered her question honestly, I replied. "I will not lie to maintain appearances. That is part of our old dynamic, not our new one." The following day, I returned home from work to find several of Laura's friends in our living room apparently gathered for an intervention. Laura sat in the center, looking simultaneously victimized and vindicated. "Tom," began Sarah, Laura's oldest friend, "we are concerned about how you have been treating Laura lately. This whole roommate thing has gone too far." I set down my briefcase and surveyed the room calmly. "I appreciate your concern, but this is between Laura and me." "She is devastated," continued another friend. "Over a joke. You cannot build a wall between you over something so trivial." I nodded thoughtfully before responding. "Did Laura happen to mention that before the joke, she had been sleeping in a separate bedroom for months, that we barely spoke except about household logistics, that she stopped attending any events related to my family or career?" Years ago. The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Laura's expression shifted from righteous indignation to panic. "This is not about one comment," I continued. "It is about recognizing the truth of our relationship. Laura sees me as a roommate who pays bills, not a husband. I am simply acknowledging that reality and adjusting accordingly." One by one, Laura's friends made awkward excuses and left, leaving us alone in the silent house. "How dare you embarrass me like that?" Laura whispered, tears in her eyes. "I simply spoke the truth," I replied. "Something we have avoided for far too long." That night I heard Laura crying in her room. Despite everything, it pained me to hear her distress. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to fall back into old patterns for the sake of peace. But I reminded myself that temporary comfort would lead to continued disrespect and unhappiness for both of us. The next morning, Laura left early without speaking to me. When I returned from work that evening, I found a note on the kitchen counter informing me she would be staying with her sister for a few days to think about things. For the first time in years, I had the house entirely to myself. The silence was both peaceful and strange. I used the time to reflect on our marriage, on my own complicity, in allowing the imbalance to develop and persist. I had prioritized Laura's happiness above my own for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to honor my own needs and boundaries. 3 days later, Laura returned, her expression subdued and thoughtful. She asked if we could talk, and I agreed. "I have been thinking about what you said," she began, sitting across from me at our dining table, "about how I have been treating you like a roommate instead of a husband." I nodded but remained silent, allowing her to continue. There is some truth to it, she admitted. I got comfortable with the lifestyle you provided and stopped putting effort into our relationship. The separate bedrooms, the minimal communication, it happened so gradually I barely noticed. I noticed, I said quietly. I just convinced myself it was normal. Laura's eyes filled with tears. It is not normal. And that comment at my party, it was cruel and untrue. I do not know why I said it. Maybe to seem cool in front of my friends, maybe to hide my own insecurities about our marriage. But it was wrong. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I felt she was being genuinely honest with me. Not manipulating, not performing, but truly seeing the damage done. Where do we go from here? I asked. Laura took a deep breath. I would like to try again. Not go back to how things were, but start fresh. Build something better this time. I considered her words carefully. I cannot simply flip a switch and trust again. That will take time and consistent effort from both of us. I understand, she nodded. Can we start with counseling together and separately? It was a reasonable suggestion, one I had made years ago and she had dismissed. The fact that she was proposing it now indicated she was serious about change. Yes, I agreed. We can start there. The process of rebuilding our relationship proved far more challenging than either of us anticipated. 3 months after our initial conversation, we had established a new routine that included weekly couples, therapy sessions, and individual counseling. Our therapist, Dr. Marlene Jensen, did not shy away from difficult conversations. During our first session, she asked us both to articulate what we wanted from the marriage moving forward. I want a true partnership, I said. Equal effort, equal respect, equal commitment. I want to feel connected again, Laura added. I want to remember why we chose each other in the first place. Dr. Jensen guided us through exercises to improve communication and rebuild trust. She assigned us relationship homework that ranged from scheduled date nights to difficult conversations about our deepest fears and insecurities. One particularly powerful session focused on the comment that had catalyzed our crisis. Laura, can you explain what was happening internally when you made that comment to your friends? Dr. Jensen asked. Laura shifted uncomfortably in her seat. I was trying to appear independent, like I did not need Tom. My friends often complained about their husbands and I joined in to fit in. But there was something deeper too. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I think I was afraid of acknowledging how much I actually depend on Tom emotionally and otherwise. Calling him just a roommate was a way to protect myself from the vulnerability of admitting how important he really is to me. This insight marked a turning point in our therapy process. Laura began to recognize patterns of emotional avoidance that stemmed from her parents' difficult marriage and subsequent divorce during her teenage years. She had equated emotional dependency with weakness and vulnerability with risk. Meanwhile, I confronted my own tendencies toward conflict avoidance and people-pleasing. I had allowed the imbalance in our relationship to grow unchecked, rather than risk confrontation or rejection. Healthy relationships require both vulnerability and boundaries, Dr. Jensen reminded us. You cannot have intimacy without risking hurt, but you also cannot have respect without establishing limits. Gradually, we began rebuilding our connection. We started with small changes, moving back into the same bedroom, establishing regular meal times together, implementing a fair division of household responsibilities. We created new rituals to replace old ones: morning coffee on the porch, Sunday evening walks around the neighborhood. The financial arrangement remained proportional, but it no longer felt like a punishment or boundary. Instead, it became a symbol of our commitment to equity and transparency. As we approached the 6-month mark of our reconciliation efforts, Laura knocked on my home office door one evening. By this time, the lock had been removed, but she still respected my space enough to knock before entering. I have something for you, she said, holding a small wrapped package. I opened it to find a key. It is symbolic, she explained. A key to a cabin I rented for this weekend just for us. No phones, no distractions, just us remembering who we are together. The weekend retreat proved transformative. Away from the house that had become both symbol and battleground of our marital issues, we rediscovered aspects of each other that had been buried under years of routine and resentment. We talked honestly about our individual dreams, our shared future, and the work still needed to harmonize the two. On our final morning at the cabin, Laura took my hand as we watched the sunrise from the porch. "Thank you," she said softly. For not giving up when it would have been easier to walk away. For holding up a mirror when I needed to see myself clearly. For giving us another chance." I squeezed her hand. "We are both doing the work. That is what matters now." Returning home, we continued our therapy sessions and gradually expanded our reconciliation to include social dimensions. We hosted a small dinner party for close friends, presenting our unified but evolved relationship without hiding the challenges we had faced. "We hit a rough patch and nearly lost our way," Laura explained honestly when a friend commented on the positive change between us. "But we are finding our way back to each other differently, but stronger." Her willingness to acknowledge our struggles publicly, rather than maintaining a facade of perfection, signaled a profound shift in her priorities and self-image. Not every day was smooth. We still had arguments, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. There were evenings when old patterns threatened to re-emerge, Laura, retreating into emotional distance, me suppressing frustration to keep peace. The difference was that we now recognized these patterns and had tools to address them constructively. 1 year after the birthday party that had revealed the truth of our relationship, we renewed our vows in a private ceremony attended only by our parents and Dr. Jensen. The vows we wrote reflected both our journey and our commitment to the ongoing work of partnership. "I promise to see you, truly see you." Laura vowed, her eyes never leaving mine. "To value your presence, not just your provision. To build a home with you, not just share a house." My vows acknowledged my own growth as well. I promised to speak my truth with courage and compassion. To establish boundaries that protect our relationship rather than walls that divide it. To be your partner in all things, expecting nothing less in return. Looking back on our journey from disconnection to renewed commitment, I am struck by how necessary that painful moment of truth became for both of us. Had I not overheard Laura's comment, had I not recognized it as symptomatic of deeper issues, we might have continued indefinitely in our parallel lives, sharing space but not connection. The intervention that began as self-protection, as a way to establish boundaries and reclaim my dignity, ultimately created space for authentic healing. By refusing to participate in the fiction of our marriage, I forced us both to confront its reality and make an active choice, either to rebuild something genuine or to acknowledge its end. For Laura, the experience prompted difficult but essential self-examination. Through therapy, she recognized patterns of emotional avoidance and fear of vulnerability that had sabotaged not only our relationship but her connections with family and friends. Learning to distinguish between healthy independence and defensive detachment allowed her to engage more authentically in all her relationships. For me, the journey involved recognizing my own worth and the courage to advocate for it even at the risk of losing what I thought I wanted. I learned that true connection cannot exist without mutual respect and reciprocity, that love without boundaries becomes martyrdom rather than partnership. Dr. Jensen often reminded us that relationships require continuous tending like gardens rather than buildings. They are never finished or fixed, but constantly evolving organisms that reflect the growth and change of the individuals within them. The goal is not perfection, she would say, but presence, conscious, intentional presence with each other through all seasons. Today, our marriage bears little resemblance to its former state. We share not only space, but dreams, challenges, vulnerabilities, and joys. We have learned to recognize warning signs of disconnection and address them before distance grows insurmountable. Most importantly, we have abandoned the performance of partnership in favor of its authentic practice. The roommate strategy that began as a boundary-setting exercise transformed into a catalyst for genuine change. By refusing to accept less than I deserved, I created an opportunity for both of us to choose a relationship worth having or to release one that was not. For those of you watching who might recognize elements of your own relationships in our story, I offer this perspective. Sometimes the most loving action you can take is establishing clear boundaries that honor your worth. True connection cannot exist where respect is absent, and respect begins with how you allow yourself to be treated. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with someone you love? How did it change your relationship? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more stories about relationships, growth, and self-respect. Remember to share this video with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening, and remember that every healthy relationship begins with honoring yourself and expecting nothing less from those who claim to love you.